And this is the best of Bloomberg Technology, where we bring you all our top interviews from this week in tech. Coming up in the next hour, Donald Trump's meeting with Kim Jong-un produced a handshake and a promise to keep talking, but was light on details. What does the summit signal for what's to come? Plus, we head to E3 to speak with some of the biggest names in gaming, including Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick and Nintendo America's Reggie Fils-Aimé on the latest trends and how they are keeping up with demand. And London Tech Week just wrapped up. We will hear from Mayor Sadiq Khan on how the city is shaking off headwinds like Brexit to lure talent and innovation. This week, we saw a historic summit between President Trump and North Korea's Kim Jong-un. The U.S. and North Korea agreed to seek complete denuclearization of the Korean peninsula following the summit, and yet no deadline was set, and the path to disarmament remains undefined. President Trump also said Kim has accepted an invitation to visit the White House, but no date for that either. We spoke with Bloomberg's chief Washington correspondent Kevin Cirilli, who was on the ground in Singapore.
It was quite remarkable to not see the details of what had been a months-long summit in the making, Emily, come to fruition here in Singapore. Now, we should note President Trump en route back to the United States already. He has been calling his allies around the world, including Chinese President Xi Jinping and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. His top diplomats, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, will be touring North Asia to meet with allies of South Korea and Japan to continue to lay out the case. But meanwhile, back in the U.S., the fallout already continuing, not just from Democrats who are urging the president to take a more cautious approach to verify whether or not North Korea is actually going to denuclearize. Also from Republicans, people like Senator Marco Rubio, Republican from Florida, as well as the likes of Senators McCain, Kennedy, Republicans from Arizona and Louisiana, respectively, raising their concerns about how to verify North Korea chairman, as the president's now referring to him, Kim Jong-un, for how he plans to denuclearize. Put more broadly, the president will need congressional approval should he decide to ease back economic sanctions. No sign of that yet, but as you mentioned, I mean, the president, by all accounts, basically extending an open invitation to Kim Jong-un to come to the White House and saying that this is just the first of many steps to come in a dialogue with North Korea. At that press conference, that marathon press conference, the final point I'll make, more than 75 minutes, President Trump taking questions, he actually was more praiseworthy of Kim Jong-un than he was of Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Emily.
Kevin, thank you so much. So are President Trump and Kim Jong-un, are they still talking? Are they texting? If so, what kind of phone might they be using, at least in North Korea? According to research from U.S. cybersecurity firm Recorded Future, it is likely being done using a device made by an American company. For more on this study, we are joined by Bloomberg Tech's Julie Verhage, who wrote about this topic in Bloomberg's Fully Charged newsletter. Julie, North Korea may not be as disconnected as we think. What kind of devices are available in North Korea, and who's using them?
Right. Well, at least the leaders in North Korea might not be as disconnected as what we think. So Kim Jong-un has been photographed a number of times using, MacBook computers and other devices. And this study shows that there's actually been a lot of leaders. They can't name names and say how many each of them have, but there's been a lot of exports of computers and other devices that are being used by them in North Korea, which is contrary to what many would believe with sanctions and the way that typical North Koreans actually end up using and accessing the internet. It's very, state sanctioned. They're only allowed to access certain sites and go through different, products. It's usually not an iPhone, it's something else. So this was shocking in that a lot of the leaders over there are bucking that trend, and they're actually still getting access to things like the iPhone X or the Samsung Galaxy.
Samsung is interesting, given, of course, it's in their backyard, and yet their mortal enemy in South Korea. How does the use of Apple devices compare to Samsung devices?
Right. Again, it can't say exactly how many each of them have, but there were a lot of, it lists a number of devices that are on there, and there were a lot of Samsung devices, various versions of it, and then everything from, the iPhone 6 to the iPhone X. So it has been a lot of new products. I will say that most of them appear to be, they said it gravitates towards older devices, so things that are running on older software. So it does appear that maybe the sanctions have gotten, obviously tougher before yesterday's meeting, and that might have, pared back some of those exports where they're not, maybe Kim Jong-un does not have access to the iPhone X yet. But if yesterday went well, like it sounds it has so far, maybe he will be able to get one in the future.
Is there concern that some of these products, specifically American products, could be used in cyber espionage?
Right, absolutely. That's one of the big concerns, because a lot of these might be used, and a lot of the espionage might be happening outside of mainland North Korea. But some of it is, and that is a big concern, saying they could be using, software, devices from an American company to do things like cyber espionage and work on these, threats to the United States using American products. And that is something the report calls out as, a reason for concern of them using it. Although, again, if they do in fact, go away from all these nuclear plans, denuclearize the nation, then that wouldn't be as much of a problem going forward.
That was Bloomberg Technology's Julie Verhage. Well, China's restaurant review and delivery giant Meituan Dianping plans to file for an IPO valued at about $6 billion. The listing would be in Hong Kong and could take place as soon as this month. It's the city's second multi-billion-dollar public listing by a tech startup this year, as the smartphone maker Xiaomi prepares for its own IPO valued at about $10 billion. And speaking of Xiaomi, analysts say the Chinese smartphone giant could end up being twice as expensive as Apple once it goes public. Morgan Stanley says Xiaomi should trade at a premium because of market share gains and faster growth trajectory. Both Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs say the company could trade for more than 30 times projected earnings, which is roughly double Apple's value. Apple is taking its foray into Hollywood one step further with a right in feature films. This, according to people familiar with the matter, who say the company is near a deal to create an animated film. Joining us now from LA with the latest, our showbiz reporter Anusha Sakua. Anusha, what do we know?
Well, we know that Apple has been in talks with the Irish animation studio Cartoon Saloon, and that is a quite well-known animation house that made films like Song of the Sea, Breadwinner, Sea of Kells, and that is it's received many Academy Award nominations for its films. It's considered very high caliber. So Apple's really getting in with a very high-quality producer of content. So it kind of says something maybe to their ambition. We don't know exactly how the film will be distributed digitally. We know that Apple has been talking to people in Hollywood over the past couple of years. It's been hiring aggressively to build out a team to make content and buy content for streaming. But it's unclear if it's going to be maybe part of its Apple Music streaming service, although that seems unlikely given that it's an animated movie.
Is there a sense that there is a shakeup to come in animated movies, given the potential exit of John Lasseter, the co-founder of Pixar, from Disney?
This weekend, actually, we've got The Incredibles 2, which is on track to do really well. And one category of film that is doing really well, but there is growing competition for, is in the animated section. And it's not a given. Pixar has had flops, not very many, obviously. But Disney is in a weakened position without John Lasseter because he was a visionary. He was responsible for the resurrection of Disney animation, which came back to strength with Frozen. It had a bit of a checkered period of years before that, and he obviously led Pixar and that label. Now, Disney's clearly in the works to bring up through its ranks to lead those two divisions, leaders in their field, and we'll see how that goes. But clearly, there's going to be some change there. But there's a lot of work going on in Hollywood in animation.
Still ahead, our conversation with London Mayor Sadiq Khan at the launch of London Tech Week. His thoughts on a new study that calls London the AI capital of Europe. And if you like Bloomberg News, check us out on the radio. Listen on the Bloomberg Radio app, Bloomberg.com, and in the U.S. on SiriusXM. This is Bloomberg.
Get the edge knowledge you need to stay ahead. Subscribe to Bloomberg Businessweek and receive 4 bonus issues free. Bloomberg Businessweek delivers in-depth reporting and provocative perspectives that take you inside the news each week. Bloomberg's 2,400 journalists worldwide dig deep for stories and insight you can't find anywhere else. Take advantage of this special offer. Order now to get 4 free bonus issues of the only business magazine powered by Bloomberg. Go to businessweekmag.com/TV offer.
Dutch payments processor Adyen almost doubled in its trading debut in what's become the biggest European tech IPO of the year. The market value of the company, which boasts Netflix and Spotify among its clients, now exceeds some long-established financial companies like Commerzbank. Adyen is one of a new breed of tech firms challenging the big banks and credit card issuers who have long controlled systems for processing payments in stores and online. And we just wrapped up London Tech Week, bringing together some of the biggest names in coding, artificial intelligence, and venture capital. Bloomberg's Caroline Hyde kicked off the week with London Mayor Sadiq Khan. Take a listen.
This is Europe's biggest festival of tech and innovation, and it's amazing. We'll have a week of more than 200 events. There are more than 50,000 visitors coming to London Tech Week from around the world. And there's so much energy and excitement. The great thing about London Tech Week, it gets bigger and bigger each year. Yeah. And you've got from startups to those thinking about startup to those accelerating to the multinationals to investors, entrepreneurs, innovators, researchers, all in one place. And so it's a very exciting ecosystem. And this is the future. Look, we can't run away from AI, automation, tech. Why? Because A, it's out there, but B, it'd be foolish to do so. I think we're going through a 4th industrial revolution, and I want to surf the wave. I want us to make the most of the tech sector, not just because of business, but because it improves our quality of life. I want to see how can tech be used to improve public services? How can tech be used to create jobs that are sustainable in the future? And we've made a great start this morning.
You talk about riding that wave. Interestingly, we're still seeing record VC money coming into London in terms of technology. We are seeing it continuing to grow, but there's slight competition out there. Notably, there's a report saying, look, now Paris is the #1 destination to put your money, so say 450 global investors. Are you worried about that London's been knocked off of the #1 spot?
Well, we must never be complacent, and I'm not complacent. But actually, there is lots of good news as well. What are the good news? A recent report in relation to AI showed as far as AI companies are concerned, there are more in London than Paris and Berlin combined. Not that I'm competitive. So we are the AI capital of Europe. Also, we've seen in relation to tech investment, venture capitalist investment, it's still going up post-Brexit. So look at Apple, Google, Snapchat, Amazon, Facebook, continue to invest in London. But actually, I think Paris and Berlin raising their game is good for us. I see them more as working in collaboration with Paris and Berlin rather than as competitors. I think it's really good that we have this synergy where if you're a smart web designer in London, you're a startup in London, you now want to have a partner in Paris or Berlin. Even more important post-Brexit, I think the future is a future of cities working closer together, mayors working closer together, and peoples working closer together rather than national governments, bureaucratic, slow, cumbersome. So I welcome Paris and Berlin raising their game. It bodes well for London.
What about the regulatory environment here in London? What about welcoming companies such as Uber? We know that the license still being ongoing under discussion. Do you think that we're still as welcoming to tech companies, and how does that conversation continue?
I want London to be a place where you want to come if you're a tech startup, if you're in disruptive technology, if you're an innovator. I want you to come whether you're a multinational or whether you're by yourself with a friend. But here's the rules. The rules are everyone plays by them. The rules of the game, regulation must apply to everyone, whether you're Uber or whether you're with a partner starting up a startup. And it's really important that I support Transport for London when it comes to them as the regulator saying to somebody like Uber, listen, you're not playing by the rules of the game. I don't care how many lawyers you've got. I I don't care how big your lobby arm is, play by the rules of the game. Good news? The new global CEO has heeded that message. And if you look at these sounds coming from Uber, look at the changes they've made. They're respecting the rules we have, but also in the end, everyone benefits. The consumer benefits, a better service, no corners cut. Uber and other tech companies should benefit because they are doing the socially responsible thing as well. That'll hopefully lead to more profits being made. But I benefit as well because I want tech companies coming to London. I want disruptive technology. I want tech companies to be helping me provide better public services. It's cheaper, but also it's a 21st century solution to problems we've had for many decades.
Do you think that we are seeing companies growing with the ethics that you want to see in London? I know that you're someone who's very much focused upon diversity within the world of technology. Are companies getting that message?
What's remarkable is actually the values these companies have are really positive and progressive, but no one's engaged with them. So if you don't engage with them, they will do it their own way, and they'll see their competitor cutting corners, and so will they. And I've engaged over the last 2 years with many of these CEOs, innovators, startups. They want to do the right thing. They want to pay a London living wage. They want to make sure that when it comes to the tech talent pipeline, they're going into deprived communities. They're making sure there are more women involved in these sectors. And the good news is young people and women want to enter these sectors. And so the reason why I'm excited about the tech sector for London is I think actually they're going to help make sure that parts of our city that haven't enjoyed the fruits of growth will enjoy the fruits of growth, because actually, with the right training and mentoring and support, anybody can do it. So I want young people to learn coding. Google are doing some great stuff around coding for girls. I want to see campuses that are sustainable and environmentally friendly. And so all the evidence I've had from my conversations and my dialogue with tech startups is they've got the right values. They love London. I was looking at some research recently in relation to AI companies. The number of founders who are either ethnically diverse or women was remarkable, which shows they've got the values, they've got the ethos, they need a helping hand. My job as the mayor is to give them the helping hand.
That was London Mayor Sadiq Khan with our own Caroline Hyde. And we should mention that the mayor's office commissioned that study that suggested that London is the AI capital of Europe. Coming up, Kitty Hawk, the flying car startup backed by Google founder Larry Page, has a new aircraft taking to the skies. We will explain next. This is Bloomberg. Flying cars were considered far-fetched technology, but some major players in tech are making flying cars a reality, not just for a few, but potentially for all of us. Our Bloomberg Tech senior executive editor Brad Stone takes a closer look at Kitty Hawk's latest flying innovation.
No, it's not a scene from The Fifth Element or Star Wars. Flying cars, they're suddenly very real. German company eVolo has a flying car with room for two. Airbus is developing a single-person autonomous flight vehicle. Chinese drone company eHang is attempting to get its taxi flight drone in the air as soon as federal regulations will allow it. It can fly over 11,000 feet. And Uber predicts urban air taxis will be roaming the skies in 10 years and has even partnered with NASA to develop new traffic concepts and skyports.
We make big, bold bets. That's part of the identity of the company.
The company's vision for the network, dubbed Uber Air, would let customers push a button and get high-speed flight in and around cities. And another flying car company just announced its latest aircraft. The Kitty Hawk Flyer, funded by Google co-founder Larry Page, sports 10 battery-powered propellers and 2 control sticks, and looks like something out of Star Wars. At first, it'll go 20 miles per hour and fly up to 10 feet in the air, all without the need for a pilot's license.
We computerize the system so that every person can learn how to fly in 5 minutes.
No word yet on when the Flyer will go on sale or how much it will cost. Kitty Hawk is also working on another aircraft called Cora. All in all, at least a dozen companies around the world are pursuing the sci-fi dream of personal aircraft to help you avoid congested highways. But are we in need of a reality check? To put flying cars in the sky, we'll need a new automated air traffic control system, years of safety tests, and cultural acceptance with the idea that these new vehicles could be landing right next door.
Our Bloomberg Tech Senior Executive Editor, Brad Stone, with me here now to talk about this. I'm not sure I'm quite ready to ride and run of those things, especially at 11,000 feet. But how big a leap in innovation is this new Flyer from Kitty Hawk?
Well, I mean, look, it's cool. I would love to ride one. I think they probably made some advancements in lightweight materials and battery technology. It's essentially a drone you put a person on top of, but they only fly over water, and you can only go 10 feet in the air. This is a recreational vehicle. I kind of compared it to the water jetpack. So it's not monumental in the way some of these other vehicles are.
Talk to us about the vision here. I mean, isn't it about relieving traffic congestion, going short distances?
Totally. So that's why the Flyer is sort of a one-off. You know, Kitty Hawk has another car called the Cora, which is really a flying car, an air taxi. Lots of other companies, Airbus, Joby Aviation, are also working on basically the idea that you hover over traffic instead of sitting in it.
We saw a bit of your interview with Dara Khosrowshahi a few weeks ago. Is this something that Uber can really be competitive, or that will change the market for Uber, or is this just flashy PR?
It's almost the least impactful thing they're working on right now. When you think of things that can move their bottom line, Uber Eats or new geographies, you know, Uber Elevate is an idea. They're not building a vehicle, they're trying to bring the industry together. Jeff Holden, who was running the effort, just left Uber. So I think it's probably going to be companies like Kitty Hawk or Airbus or Joby Aviation that are actually really making a difference here.
Now, some of the flying car aficionados say that flying cars will be here faster than self-driving cars. Give us the reality check on that.
Yeah, I don't believe it. I mean, Emily, we can look out the window here at Pier 3 and see, you know, autonomous test cars passing us on the Embarcadero. You know, Tesla has vehicles out there with autopilot. That's level 3 autonomy. You know, the FAA has got to take a deep, probably decade-long look at some of these vehicles. So the idea of these personalized transportation vehicles flying through the air is going to take a long time.
So talk to us about where regulation stands now.
I mean, it stands nowhere. Like Dan Elwell, the acting administrator of the FAA, went to Uber Elevate and said, we're going to come at this from a safety perspective. It takes 10 years for them to authorize a new aircraft. There are things about like the air traffic control system and what kind of airspace you will use that have yet to be figured out. So I think we're at the very beginning of what will be an impactful transportation revolution, but it's going to take a long time.
Our thanks to Bloomberg's Brad Stone. And Tesla says it will cut about 9% of jobs across the company. The cuts will impact salaried employees and won't include production associates. Tesla says the staff reduction will not affect its ability to reach Model 3 production targets in the next few months, and that no further cuts are planned. Speaking of Musk, BYOM, bring your own marshmallows, and Elon Musk will supply the flames to roast them in the form of a flamethrower. Hundreds of people lined up outside his Boring Company headquarters to get their hands on the $500 flamethrowers the company sold to raise $10 million in funds. The, flame off took place next to SpaceX headquarters and also showed off a Falcon 9 rocket and prototype Hyperloop tunnel. Coming up, the gaming craze that's upending the industry, Fortnite, is headed to Nintendo Switch. So how will adding the hottest game on the block impact the maker of Mario? We will ask Nintendo of America President Reggie Fils-Aimé next. And Bloomberg Technology is live streaming on Twitter. Check us out at Technology, and be sure to follow our global breaking news network at TikTok, on Twitter. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back to the Best of Bloomberg Technology. I'm Emily Chang. This week, we broadcast live from LA at the video game industry's biggest show of the year, E3, the Electronic Entertainment Expo. One company that annually makes a super smash at this event is Nintendo, yet the company's shares sank after unveiling few new titles for its Switch console. Almost all of the main content shared at the show was either announced or leaked in prior months and weeks, including Fortnite, Pokemon, and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Wednesday's share drop pushed Nintendo to its lowest in September, wiping out all the market gains made after its strongest holiday season in 8 years. We spoke with Nintendo of America President and COO Reggie Fils-Aimé from the event.
Nintendo as a company loves to surprise people. So what that means when we approach an event like E3 is we show content that's going to launch over the next 6 to 9 months and no more. And so we always have more surprises. There's always more in store. And so why the analysts reacted the way they did, who knows? But we know from a company perspective, there's a lot more up our sleeves and there's a lot more that we have to show over the weeks and months ahead.
Oh, but tell us the surprises.
Right here, right now. For us, we believe there's a lot more value for the consumer to tell them about content and then launch it, just like we did for Fortnite. And Fortnite already has 2 million downloads specifically on the Nintendo Switch.
Wow.
So for us, by surprising the fans and driving this type of excitement, we're able to move the business forward, and that's what most important to us.
So Super Smash Brothers, Fortnite, new Pokemon games, which one is going to move the needle the most for Nintendo this year?
For us, the way we look at it is we have an opportunity in the here and now to continue driving momentum. Fortnite, the Octo expansion for Splatoon 2 that's launching tonight, Mario Party launching in October, Pokemon launching in November, right before Black Friday, and then Super Smash Bros. Ultimate in December. It's the pacing of news, the pacing of launches that's going to drive the business forward.
Let's talk about the online service. You do have that coming in September, which means it's cloud-based, and the network performance of the games that you've been trialing has been bad. I mean, some players have said that it's unplayable. Is that going to improve?
Absolutely. And again, we need to be clear. When we do a trial event, for example, with Mario Tennis Aces, we're as much learning about the technical infrastructure as well as the way the game is going to play. And so you have to expect some challenges when you do that. When we launch the game, it's going to perform, just like it did for Fortnite.
Okay, let's talk about the Switch. You have added some incentives to make it cheaper for people to buy a second one. Are there going to be more of those incentives?
So those incentives are specific to the Japanese market. And
so that's not coming to the U.S.?
So it's not coming to the North American marketplace. And this reflects just the difference in culture and the difference in living situations that you have across the world. Japanese homes, small, typically one TV in the household. So for that market, offering an additional SKU that takes out HDMI cables and things of that nature makes sense. Here in the Americas, 3 TVs per household, big TVs. For us, selling a fully configured second Switch into the home is what we're focused on, and we're seeing that happen. And we especially expect to see that happen with Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee.
There are some concerns, though, that the Switch can't sort of carry the torch for both the 3DS and the Wii. What are you doing to make it more attractive?
Well, but, so again, let's focus in on the Americas and the U.S. marketplace. In the month of December, our dedicated handheld business, 2DS, 3DS, grew by 27% year on year. So far this year, our 2DS, 3DS business is up 10% this year. So the Switch is not all on its own. It's getting some very strong support by a dedicated handheld business here in the Americas. And for us, we want to continue driving both of those platforms. The dedicated business for 2DS, 3DS is for kids and for families to get engaged for the first time, potentially, in video games. And then the Nintendo Switch is going to be that game where consumers want to play Smash Brothers and Zelda and all of these big epic games, and that's what we're looking to do.
Speaking of epic games, Fortnite, Arena of Valor, Pokemon Quest, it's great that these games are a success. They are also free to play. How are they going to make money for Nintendo?
So the way they get monetized is the consumer buys either attire or season passes, things of that nature. And as long as those merchandise well, then there's a strong profit for us and for the developer themselves.
What's Nintendo's opinion on loot boxes and these pay-to-win tactics?
You know, loot boxes, broadly speaking, have gotten a bit of a bad rap. The game mechanic of buying something that you're not quite sure what's inside is as old as baseball cards, as an example. And so what we believe, for example, at Nintendo, is that a gameplay mechanic that offers the consumer something to buy that they're not sure what's inside can be interesting, as long as that's not the only way that you could get those items. And I think that's where maybe some developers have made some mistakes. For us, it's one of many mechanics that we can use to drive ongoing engagement in the game.
So tell us about the new president and what might change for you. So your new president.
So Mr. Furukawa, you know, he's a veteran, 25 years with the company. What's great about him is he's had some fairly extensive experience outside of Japan. He was one of the first financial people that Nintendo of America was dealing with back in our early days. He spent 12 years in Europe, so he really has an understanding for the overseas subsidiary. He loves our content, plays our games. So from my perspective, he's a great choice to be our next global president.
That was Nintendo of America President Reggie Fils-Aimé. Now, the year-old free global hit Fortnite was the talk of the event. The multiplayer shooting title released last year by closely held Epic Games has become a cultural phenomenon. And while Epic Games may be reaping most of the benefits, one CEO is saying this game is actually benefiting the entire industry. Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick says as first-time gamers take to Fortnite, they will start looking for other titles. We caught up with him there at E3.
I'm not sure it's shaking up. It's a hit. It's a great thing for the industry to have hits. We wish we had all of them. We have a lot of them, but not all of them. I think in the case of Fortnite, there's some evidence we're bringing on board a younger audience, perhaps a more female audience. And if people are being introduced to video games and they learn to love them, that's great for all of us.
3 big titles coming out in October, including yours, Red Dead Redemption 2, Activision's Call of Duty, EA Battlefield 5. How do you make sure yours is the winner?
The way we create success, the entire focus of our company is on the quality of our titles. Red Dead Redemption has been a highly anticipated title. We've begun to put some assets into the marketplace, and people seem to love them. Pre-orders are strong. We're feeling really good about Red Dead Redemption. It does stand alone in terms of a theme. There aren't very many Western-themed titles in the marketplace. When we put out Red Dead Redemption the first time, conventional wisdom was that Westerns couldn't work, and it was a massive hit. It sold in over 16 million units. We feel really good about Red Dead Redemption.
So it's just a few months away. Why aren't you showing it at E3? Everyone wants to see it. Seems like a great opportunity to generate buzz.
Yeah, we're actually not showing products at E3. We found actually this show for us is a great place to connect with our retail customers, a great place to connect with press and with industry analysts, with investors, and our products are widely marketed and people have a sense of them. While we do have consumers here at E3, it is not primarily a consumer show. So how do you intend to monetize it and make sure that it generates revenue over a long period of time? Our focus over a long period of time is engagement. And what we've said is with regard to all of our releases, we want to give consumers an opportunity not only to fall in love with the product, but to stay in love with the product over a long period of time. If we do that, revenue, profits follow. We don't lead with monetization. It's not our primary concern. We're concerned about entertaining, captivating, engaging consumers over a long period of time. I'm curious about your thoughts on the latest gaming industry controversy, loot boxes and these play-to-win, pay-to-win tactics. You know, is that healthy for the industry, or is it exploitative? I don't believe it's exploitative. I think at the end of the day, this is entertainment. Entertainment is not a must-have good. It's a want-to-have good. We choose to be entertained. The randomization mechanic has been used by us in the past. It is not a mechanic that we typically use. We do not have any problem with it, however. And I think the bottom line is, do your game mechanics fit with your creative offering? And if they don't, consumers won't show up.
Any concern that legislators are going to crack down on this?
I don't think that there's a concern in the U.S. There may be concern in international markets in the same way that we have, pure freedom of speech here in the U.S. And in certain international markets, we are constrained as to what we can do creatively.
So you think in Europe they could crack down?
I'm not sure which. I don't think it'll be across the board. It's possible one or two countries will have a point of view about what kind of mechanic can be used. I think that would be wrong-headed, and it hasn't happened yet, but it may.
And yet, last month the Supreme Court ruled to strike down a law preventing gambling in sports, and I know you've expressed optimism that this could have an impact on esports. How optimistic are you doing things to prepare for potentially legalized esports gambling, legalized gambling in gaming?
We are not yet. We're open-minded. We are an entertainment company. We're obviously not a gambling company. It's a different mechanic. It's really a different business, and it requires regulation. I think we'd have to think long and hard before going into that business. However, it clearly creates opportunity.
That was Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick. And still ahead, Bitcoin tumbled over the weekend after South Korean crypto exchange CoinRail said it has been hacked. We're going to track the breach and talk about whether the market can recover after a rough start to 2018. And the building blocks of life. Did NASA discover them on Mars? We'll get the answer straight from their lead scientist. This is Bloomberg. A crypto exchange hack in South Korea pours fuel on the fire that is the Bitcoin slump. Bitcoin itself is down more than 50% in the last year. The South Korean exchange CoinRail says some of its digital currency appears to have been stolen by hackers, but would not disclose how much. The exchange did say 2/3 of the stolen assets have been frozen or collected, while investigators are following the rest. This isn't the first time we've seen this type of hack. Japanese exchange CoinCheck was hit in late January with a heist worth $500 million. So when will security risks let up? We spoke with Bloomberg's Jordan Robertson, who covers all things cybersecurity, along with our Bloomberg executive editor and host of What'd You Miss, Joe Weisenthal.
Hackers compromised the website for a small South Korean cryptocurrency exchange called CoinRail. CoinRail is not a name that would be on the tips of most people's tongues. It barely ranks in the top 100 of global cryptocurrency exchanges. But what happened there has a lot of resonance for anybody investing in this market, and it's part of the reason you're seeing, there was a big sell-off this weekend in terms of billions of dollars of cryptocurrency stock or value, billions of dollars in value from cryptocurrencies falling. The reason for that is this, is once a piece of digital currency is stolen, you cannot get it back. It's not like money that can be reimbursed by a bank, although some cryptocurrency exchanges have reimbursed victims of hacking attacks. I find it endlessly fascinating that what a cryptocurrency is, it is a number. It is a digital file that you are given, and if you give that to an exchange and that exchange is then hacked, that money is gone for good. So you're seeing a lot of people running away from the market because of that security risk.
I want to put this into context. So take a look at this chart in my GTV library, which shows the slump in cryptocurrencies over the last 6 months. Joe, how much of this is due to this particular hack? Is this due to lingering concern about crackdowns in China and overall pessimism from folks like yourself?
I think it's a combination of a lot of different things. I mean, look, I think the simplest answer is it's the backside of the euphoria that we saw in Q3 and Q4 of 2017 when people were throwing out enormous expectations of where the price was going. It was going parabolic. Everybody was talking about it. Celebrities were talking about it. And the interesting thing is that if you just look from a fundamental standpoint in 2018 and you saw ongoing moves into the space, whether it's legacy financial companies expanding into the space, upstarts getting more institutionalized, people who have their careers in finance jumping into crypto, things look really good, or some of the news looks really good, but it hasn't been enough to sort of stem the tide of what is sort of what happens at the other half of when an asset goes parabolic like this.
On the security issue in particular, Jordan, why are cryptocurrencies so difficult to secure? You would think that they would be less vulnerable to fraud because they are trackable.
You would. You know, part of the problem is, though, is that, as I said earlier, I mean, one of the really difficult parts about handling virtual currencies or digital currencies and protecting them is that it's simply a file. It is simply a number. It's a unique number assigned to a particular individual and the value of their digital currency. So if you think about all the massive data hacks that we've seen, and you know, the terabytes of data flying out of companies as a result of hacks, you know, if you replace those data sets, whether they're emails or whatever, with, you know, a Bitcoin that could be worth thousands or millions of dollars, you know, what you get is like the perfect target for these hacking attacks. And when the criminals make off with their bounty, it is literally a file filled with numbers that then become, you know, again, tens of millions of dollars potentially in this case. They're very, very hard to protect because they're a very small, discrete piece of data that once you lose it, it's gone.
And yet there are some big banks experimenting with cryptocurrency, some more than experimenting with cryptocurrency. Joe, do you see at any point this becoming a legitimate currency that is backed by a global financial system if some of these hiccups and issues are worked out?
It's possible, but something that I think is really important is that the hiccups that you mentioned and that Jordan described are both the vulnerability of cryptocurrencies, but also arguably the selling point. Because if you think about it, what is the case to use a cryptocurrency as opposed to traditional currency for transactions? It is the implicit promise that nobody can seize it from you, nobody can tell you who you can spend it with, nobody can tell you, say, you can't move it from one country to another, circumventing capital controls. These are all of the things that are theoretically what make Bitcoin or make other cryptocurrencies appealing to people. And so the flip side has to be some measure of irreversibility, because you couldn't have a system in which you could have ironclad guarantee that you can do the transaction you want to transact with if there was some third party that could say, no, we're going to reverse that transaction, or you're not allowed to. And so as long as a cryptocurrency is sort of designed for this purpose of censorship-free transactions, there will never be a day, I don't think, where there isn't a risk of hacks and mistakes that result in permanent loss of funds.
Jordan, it's not just about cryptocurrency, it's about the blockchain in general, which so many people are, you know, heralding the future of, you know, not necessarily when it comes to Bitcoin and these particular currencies, but the potential for blockchain technology to revolutionize, you know, the rest of the internet. I mean, do you think that there's more optimism there outside of these, you know, specific markets?
Sure, yeah. The underlying technology here for these digital currencies, the blockchain, it actually has some really unique and interesting properties that a lot of big banks, a lot of other organizations are trying to tap. I mean, so much so that it's become a meme, it's become kind of a joke in some circles. But one of the things that I find really amusing about these hacks, if there's anything amusing about them at all, is that when this money is stolen as a result of the blockchain and the transparency that Joe talked about, you know, you can actually see where the money is. It's like if somebody robbed your bank account and they're holding it in front of your face, but you don't know who they are. You can actually identify and track down all of these stolen Bitcoin and other digital currencies. You just don't know who's holding it. You don't know who's behind it. That's actually a feature of the blockchain and of the technology undergirding these digital currencies. That you can see it, you can revoke those coins, you can block them, you can freeze them. So there's actually a lot more transparency in that system, you know, than the traditional banking system. And that's ultimately a good thing that lots of companies can put to use.
That was Bloomberg Technology's Jordan Robertson and Bloomberg's Joe Weisenthal. Coming up, NASA's Curiosity rover may have made its most significant discovery yet on the red planet. What this means for finding life on Mars next. This is Bloomberg.
Is there life on Mars?
Well, there might finally be an answer to David Bowie's timeless question, or at least a better chance to narrow down the answer. NASA's Mars Curiosity rover has found what could be the potential foundation for life on the red planet. Organic molecules have been found on Mars's 3.5 billion-year-old bedrock. Elon Musk may be trying to colonize Mars now, but NASA says this means chances of finding life there already just went up. To tell us more about this earth-shaking discovery, we spoke with Jennifer Eigenbroek, a biogeochemist at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center and the lead author of the study on these findings.
Essentially, we found organic matter in rocks from an ancient lake on Mars. That lake was around 3.5 billion years ago. So the planet was a lot different back then. And we've had other clues that tell us that pretty much their water was around, there were nutrients around, and there was energy sources around. And now we have evidence of organic material around. So essentially everything that life would need to be happy was there. We just don't know if there was life. The organic materials that we found could be from life, or perhaps they were just possible food for life back then when the lake was around. Either way, it still bodes well for the search for life going forward.
So let's take it one step further. Is it possible that some form of life still exists there? Does this give you any information about that?
Well, we're not really sure if life has ever existed, but if life ever got established, it was probably really early on in Mars history, around the same time that life got established on early Earth. At that point, the two planets were probably very similar. And Mars sort of took a different path. It lost its magnetic field, the atmosphere started getting swept away, and a lot of radiation started hitting the surface, and it changed the planet significantly. And thus, Earth kind of took a different path. It developed a really diverse biosphere, and Mars, if it ever had life, probably lost a lot of its biosphere. Now there are some scientists who think that life would have taken refuge in the subsurface if it ever existed, and it still may be there today. But there are other scientists who think that essentially the Mars biosphere is burnt out.
So the Curiosity rover has been taking samples from Mars for 5 years now, and I know that this new information gives you new details on where and how to look. But what's next now that you know this?
Well, the next step is to actually look for the biosignatures. These are basically imprints from life. You can imagine a dinosaur leaving a fossil behind in form of a skeleton. Well, microorganisms can leave behind chemical imprints of their existence, possibly even cell structures. And those are the types of things that we would look for in the ancient rocks as indicators of whether or not life used to exist on Mars at some point. And there's two missions that are in the works right now that can shed light on this. The first one is from the European Space Agency, and it's the ExoMars rover that will launch in 2020. And it has the capability of drilling down 2 meters, which is a really important technology development, because that means that they can get away from the radiation. They have the potential of getting to organic materials that are much better preserved than what Curiosity encountered in the top 5 centimeters. The other mission is one by NASA. It's called the Mars 2020 rover, and if it stumbles upon the right material, it can cache it, and at some point later the plan is to come back and pick it up and bring those samples back to Earth for further analysis. And both of those could actually tell us a lot more about whether life ever existed on Mars and the potential for life to exist there today.
And NASA is looking for life in the solar system outside of Mars. If it is somewhere else, what's most likely?
Oh, it's anybody's guess. There's Mars subsurface, which is a good place to look for more recent life. There's the ancient rocks to look for the ancient life. On other places, two really appealing places are ocean worlds. We call them Enceladus, which is a small moon that goes around Saturn, and the other one is Europa. Both of them have oceans underneath an icy crust, and it's possible that those oceans actually have something similar to what we imagine as the microbiology at hydrothermal vents in the oceans here on Earth. And if that's the case, then the ocean water could have signatures of life in it. Could be modern day cells, it could be old material, but things that would actually tell us if there had been life there. And if we can access that ocean material, then we can do a pretty good search for life. And if that's the case, then it might be a life that evolved independent of Earth's, which would be pretty fascinating for, I think, everyone in general, but certainly the science community.
That was NASA's Jennifer Eigenbroek. And that does it for this edition of the Best of Bloomberg Technology. We're going to bring you all the latest in tech throughout the week. You can tune in each day, 5 p.m. in New York, 2 p.m. in San Francisco. And remember, all episodes of Bloomberg Technology are now live streaming on Twitter. Check us out at Technology weekdays. That's all for now. This is Bloomberg.